first preseason game is in the books, and so is the first preseason win, as the Ravens defeated the Tennessee Titans 23-10, and the Ravens have now won 21 straight preseason games. So let's talk about it. I'm Shelby Granath alongside Ryan Mink and Garrett Downing. And guys, 32 players for the Ravens did not suit up tonight, but we still saw a lot of really good football. Who was the real deal tonight?
Yeah, I have to point to Isaiah Likely as the standout for the Ravens. Obviously, he's done it all in training camp practice, and we were all waiting to see, is that going to transfer over to games? The Ravens had a hunch that it would. John Harbaugh this week even said he's going to play a big role in this offense, and I think he's right after what I saw today. Going up, plucking a catch off a defender's head, time and time making plays down the field, third downs. He had the holding penalties, which were kind of the negative of his night tonight, but overall you come away feeling really good about the impact that he can have on this offense as a rookie.
Yeah, I think just as a big picture, you want to see guys who have success in training camp and practice carry that over into a game environment, and you saw that with a handful of players. Isaiah Likely at the top of that list. He's somebody who we've all been talking about in camp, and then he comes out here and has a really strong night. Now, of course, he's going to be focused on the things that he needs to improve on, the holding penalties, and he joked about some of the juke moves. He got a juke move on that first one and then tried to put a few more juke moves on to continue to try to get a first down.
I like the second one. Maybe the third one was okay. Fourth one, totally unnecessary.
He tried a bunch of juke moves on one of those plays, his first catch. He said he was just kind of fired up. The emotions were running high on your first NFL catch. Understandable. And I think something you kind of forget about is that two of the guys who really had big games here, Isaiah Likely is one, Shamar Bridges, who we're going to talk about, is another. And they talked about how in college, they never played in an environment like this. So walking into this stadium, seeing the fans here, playing in front of a large crowd, all of that stuff is a challenge, and they handled it really well.
So what I'm hearing is the duo of Mark Andrews and Isaiah will likely be a dangerous threat.
Wow, here
right?
we go. It's just
the
start.
Sorry.
It's just the start.
Well, you mentioned Shamar Bridges, and man, what a game he had. And there were questions about the wide receivers coming into tonight, and Rashad Bateman didn't play. James Prochet didn't play. So what did you see out of that young group? Yeah,
well, Shamar was definitely at the top of the list, and he's a guy that I've had my eye on ever since OTAs. He made a lot of plays in OTAs and minicamp, and really fits the bill of, I think, rounding out this Ravens wide receiver core. And let's be frank, there's still a long ways to go. Shamar Bridges didn't win a 53-man roster spot tonight. He's going to have to keep this up. But I think that he has the size, 6'4", that kind of adds a bigger possession outside, go up and get the ball kind of receiver, contested catch kind of receiver that the Ravens lost when they parted ways with Miles Boykin. So it makes a lot of sense. He's fast, he's big, he's physical, and he just keeps making plays. And, he had been a little bit quiet in training camp practices, not quite as active as he was in minicamp and OTAs, but to see him go out here and do it in a preseason game, well, all right, now you've got my attention again, So I think he was really the leader, but Mekhi Polk had a nice night, another undrafted rookie wide receiver. And down the line at wide receiver, I think guys made plays.
Yeah, that's a competition where there's an open spot there. There's a number of guys competing for that fifth receiver spot, a bunch of undrafted guys, some young players like Jalen Moore, Benjamin Victor. And with Shamar Bridges, what I liked, we actually had a chance to just talk with him in the locker room right before we came out here, and he was not celebrating. He was not sitting there saying, well, it looks like I'm going to be on the 53. He's well aware that this competition is going to take over the course of the entire preseason and training camp, and he just kept talking about how the fact that he needs to keep stacking practices, keep stacking performances like this. And the other thing that I like about...
Talked about special teams.
Yeah.
That was a key. That's going to be a key thing in that wide receiver battle, and he already knows it. Was talking a lot about special teams.
The other thing I like about him is that sometimes you have a big receiver who doesn't play big.
Yep.
And he did. He goes up and he plucks one down the field for a 30-plus yard gain. Then he goes out there and he makes, obviously, the jump ball catch in the end zone for a touchdown, where he just jumped over the DB and won that route.
Yep.
So I like a big receiver who plays big, and I think it was a really strong night for him.
Yep.
What about the rookies? We talked about it. Some of them haven't played in an environment like this, but they went out and made plays. Kyle Hamilton recovered a forced fumble. We had Travis Jones had a sack. Pepe Williams almost had a pick six on his first drive. So who stood out to you in that rookie class?
Well, I think let's start with the 14th overall pick, Kyle Hamilton. I think it was a bit of a mixed bag for him tonight. He jumped on that fumble, and you could see just watching him a few reps where he didn't even make plays, you just see the ground that he covers, right? And his size, even when he puts on the pads and he's out here on a game field, he looks like a man amongst boys. Just his size and the way he moves is all great. The fumble recovery is all great. Now, he missed the sack opportunity on Malik Willis. I will say that Malik Willis will make a number of people miss over his career. Kyle Hamilton will not be the last.
Yeah.
So, Kyle Hamilton's kind of learning the angles of what it means to be a blitzer. He didn't have a college sack at all. He's still looking for his first career sack. So he's going to get better at that. You had to play down the field on a long run. We kind of overran it too. To me, it looked like, it was an excited rookie who overran a couple plays, and that's certainly understandable as a first round pick in your first preseason game.
The point you made about the ground that he covers, that like when you're watching that and the view that we have in the press box when you're kind of up top and you can just see that the all 22 look. And there was a play where Malik Willis kind of ran out and Kyle Hamilton came from the deep safety spot and then it ended up forcing him out of bounds. And he just covered, it looked like 40 yards on that play.
Right.
I mean, with a great angle on that play, and his closing speed was excellent. So I thought it was a pretty strong debut for Kyle Hamilton. He had, he jumped on that football for the fumble recovery. It's just the tip of the iceberg for him, but I was encouraged by what I saw from him.
Yeah, and then I think the rookies, like you said, Pepe Williams played the entire game. I mean, he went from
all
corner
over the secondary too.
Safety at one point
in the second half. So I mean, we were joking up in the press box that you probably have to steal that dude's helmet for him to not be playing in this game. He was so jacked up to be playing in the preseason. When we talked to him on the Lounge podcast, he was so excited for this, and you really saw him taking on some bigger receivers for tackles. I mean, the dude was all over the place. And it was a good night for Travis Jones. Got a sack, and not just a sack in the pocket. When you got a man that large running out to the sideline, tracking down Malik Willis on the sideline to get a sack, that says something a little bit about Travis Jones's athleticism.
And with Pepe Williams and Travis Jones, they also fall into that category of players who have stood out to me in training camp. And then you come out here in a game atmosphere and you build off of that and you continue that. And I just think that's really encouraging.
Yep.
Another position group we've been watching throughout training camp is that O-line. A lot of movement there, and there was a lot of movement on that line tonight. What stood out to you about that position?
I thought that Tyree Phillips had a pretty strong game. Got a lot of playing time, really played the whole way. He really had the nice seal block on Mike Davis's 4-yard touchdown that got the Ravens on the board first. So I thought it was a good night for him.
Yeah, another guy who I was eager to see play tonight was Jawan James, who was playing his first game in a couple of years, is making the transition from right tackle to left tackle and obviously changing teams in the midst of that. I think it was kind of an up and down night for Jawan James. He did have a nice play where he pulled on he kind of got out in space, and he's such an athletic guy, and I think that's a strength of his game. He had a couple other blocks where they didn't go his way, so he's still kind of figuring out that transition, and he's been open about that fact, making that move from right tackle where he's played for most of his career, really his entire career, to left tackle isn't an easy thing to make, an easy thing to do, but he's going through that right now, and I thought you saw some bright spots. Of course, the Ravens certainly hope that Ronnie Stanley's back on the field, but Jawan James, I think, showed some promise tonight, and that was good to see him out there. And then, Ben Cleveland was another guy who I think we were curious to see. Took him a little while to get on the field because of the conditioning test, but he got out there tonight, and I didn't notice any mishaps, from him at all. And he didn't seem to be wearing down because of conditioning, which I think is good. So I think a pretty strong night for Ben Cleveland.
Well, speaking of conditioning, I'll mention one other gugu, and that's Daniel Fa'alele, the rookie,
that's a good point.
Massive rookie who is really struggling to get through practices during OTAs. And now in training camp, it seems like he went to work between minicamp and training camp. He's had no issues with his conditioning in training camp, and he played the entire game out here practically, going the whole way. That really speaks to the condition that he's in now.
Throughout training camp, we've also talked a lot about running backs and how will that group look this year. We saw Nate McCrary had a nice run tonight. Mike Davis had the first touchdown of the game.
Yeah.
How is that group shaping out?
I thought Justice Hill showed some pop today, and unfortunately for him, some of his best runs got called back by holds. But that dude was fast to the edge. I thought he looked really explosive. I also thought the rookie Tyler Beatty was the other dude who impressed me. Just shifty in between the tackles, shifty on the outside, physical. He took a lump. He took a pretty big hit at the end of one play, and he popped up and was telling that dude what he thought about that hit. And for a little, I don't know, what is he, 5'10", Tyler Beatty, be stand up like that. Show me a little something.
Yeah, I like that. Justice Hill, we've talked about him before. I just have been really impressed, really from the start of the entire offseason program, when he first got back on the field from that torn Achilles, he's had a good burst in his step after coming back from that injury. He showed that tonight. Yeah, those runs get called back, but from an evaluation standpoint, that doesn't matter.
They're on tape. They're on tape, baby.
Yeah, the coaches aren't evaluating the penalty when it comes to his speed and the shiftiness.
Did the penalty allow the run to happen? I don't really think so on either of those.
Yeah,
I think that he had that edge at either way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Mike Davis, I think that, if the season were to start today, I think he could go out there and be a capable RB1.
He's a pro.
He's a pro, and he gets in the end zone. Obviously, he wasn't going to get a ton of carries tonight, but with Davis and Justice Hill, to me, I think that those are running backs that I have been impressed with over the course of this summer.
Well, speaking of running backs, the big news at the Castle this week was that J.K. Dobbins returned to practice and didn't get much practice time, individual drills, but how promising was it just to see him out there?
Look, we all want J.K. Dobbins on the field. But nobody wants
more than JK.
Nobody wants to be on the field.
Stole that one from you.
I know. I was building up to that punchline. We've done this for too many years together. But no, look, J.K. Dobbins is somebody who you could just feel his enthusiasm when he got back out there on the field. I mean, I think that, like, when he was going through individual drills, I think the coaches even had to be like, all right, just take it easy. Just like it's your first day back. Right. And at one point, I saw him and Harbaugh talking on his first practice back, and it looked like Coach Harbaugh was just kind of almost laughing at just how hard he was going. It's just like, you got to get through these first practices. And to me, he looked good. I mean, I think there's still a period that he has to go through. Like, I don't think that he's back to where he was at the 2020 season, but I think that he can get there, no doubt. And it's going to take a little bit of time. But just having him on the field, that is a big step for a player who's coming back from a significant knee injury. There's a lot of hurdles during that recovery process. Getting on the practice field is one of the biggest hurdles, and so I'm encouraged by having him back on the field, especially with, he gets back with a month to go before the regular season, so I think he can get back into that, 2020 type of condition and, feel like his old self again.
Yeah, well, John Harbaugh said this week that the first week or two after J.K. comes back is really when we're going to find out about where he is at physically. He said his legs felt pretty sore after those first couple days of individual work, because he's got to work through this.
And he's going so hard through it.
Exactly. And when you get back on the field, it's not like you just don't snap your fingers and, all right, he's back on the field, let's pop him out there week one. Mm-hmm. There's still a ramp-up process. J.K. is going through that. He's going to shake off some of this rust. And it's, he's got to build that trust back in his knee as well, and so there's going to be a process, but all signs are pointing up.
Well, that was obviously huge news, but quite possibly the biggest news this week was that Tony Jefferson can now see.
Wow, yes, that's a good point, right? He wasn't using echolocation out here. That was really nice.
And the fans were great tonight. I mean, the fans have been really supportive all throughout training camp, coming out to Owings Mills on those hot July and August days, and here tonight, they were great, and I think it was awesome for some of these players to experience that. And talking about J.K. Dobbins, he has yet to play in front of full Ravens flock because his rookie year was 2020. So it was just a great crowd tonight and really good to bring that energy back to M&T Bank Stadium.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could feel it. I mean, there was excitement. I mentioned the young guys who are stepping into this atmosphere for the first time, like an Isaiah Likely, like a Shamar Bridges, and I was encouraged by what I saw from them in terms of handling the stress that comes with stepping into an NFL stadium and looking up and just kind of feeling the magnitude of the moment. It was big for them to handle that.
Yep, and the players have a new locker room. They're excited about that as well.
They are excited about that.
You can actually see the players' reaction to the new locker room in the newest Wired episode that dropped. It covers the first about 10 days of training camp, and it's a really nice inside look at this team and some of the players, so that's on our YouTube page. So now, coming up this week, the Ravens will head to Arizona for another preseason game. What are you looking forward to in this next week of practice and then that next preseason game?
Yeah, look, I think you want to continue to see who can kind of withstand. Now we're getting into the dog days. We are getting into the dog days.
What's been the dog days?
I don't know.
It's been howling, my friend. I don't know where you've been, but it has been hot.
It was the second day, and you were saying it was a dog day. So now we're actually getting to that point where this is the grind of training camp. You've played a preseason game. How do you feel coming off of a game? How do you feel getting back into those hot practices and then going out to Arizona where it's going to be even hotter? Now they're not doing joint practices. units. They're just practicing as a team out there. But look, I think you want to see how the team bounces back physically, especially some of the young guys who played a ton of snaps, a ton of reps.
And who can come back? You know, do any of those injured guys come back before Arizona, or do they put that off until after they get back?
Yep.
And it's a time for team bonding. You know, I'll be paying attention on Twitter to see all these behind-the-scenes clips. You know, I mean, that's why John Harbaugh wanted to go out there early. It's a little extra team bonding, so it'll be good.
All right, fans, for all the highlights from tonight's preseason game, check out BaltimoreRavens.com, and we'll be with the team in Arizona next week. So keep it locked into all of the Ravens social media platforms to check out content from that trip. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.